This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Jamie Glazov Moment. Tonight, the Jihadist Psychopath's Plantation. How he keeps us enslaved in his prison and how we can escape. Ladies and gentlemen, you probably already know by now, I've written a new book that's coming out very soon, Jihadist Psychopath. How he is charming, seducing, and devouring us. And one of the key themes in my book is I unveil the plantation that the Jihadist Psychopath has built and that he keeps us on. That today he keeps the West on. There's a certain plantation that the Jihadist Psychopath has built, and many Westerners, leaders, members of our civilization are now stuck on that plantation. And on many levels, it's an ideological plantation. It's the boundaries of discourse, of what people are allowed to think and what they're not allowed to think, what they're allowed to say and what they're not allowed to say. And as you well know, those of you who are following it, the unholy alliance between the left and Islamic supremacism, between the Jihadist Psychopath and those that help him from the left, but also those he's imprisoned that are now enslaved, the boundaries of discourse are controlled now by the unholy alliance and by the Jihadist Psychopath. Islamic blasphemy laws are now in place, and you can see this everywhere in terms of what's happening on social media, in terms of the war that's being waged and the censorship that's now being enforced on leaders like leaders of the counter-jihad movement and of the truth, like Robert Spencer and Annie Cyrus and Bridget Gabriel and Nani Darwish and David Horowitz and all of these heroes that are fighting for the battle of the truth. Each of them are being censored in their own way, libeled in their own way, attacked in their own way, and we're all fighting back, but we know very well what's happening in terms of our boundaries of discourse in our society. So I'll just even bring up one way that the Jihadist Psychopath's plantation is working today. There's an acceleration, for instance, in jihadist stabbings in Europe and in Canada. And so, and we know that ISIS and other jihadist groups, that they're issuing these orders. There's jihad by car, there's jihad by knife, etc. But in Europe, the stabbings are just accelerating, where the followers of the religion of peace on the street are just running up and stabbing kafirs and unbelievers, etc. But here's the key. After this happens, the media is always talking about mental illness. Maybe the person was unemployed. It's all about having a job. It could have been climate change. It could have been this, but it's always something else. The media will never truthfully say what inspired and sanctioned the jihadist to do what he or she did. And the ultimate truth, as we know, of course, are the Quranic teachings, are the Islamic texts that inspire and sanction this jihad. And so in terms of these jihadist attacks now, we see how the victims, and the West is the victim, is engaged in a lie in terms of why it's being attacked. Also very interesting in terms of how the news and the media cover this. In Canada, for instance, it just happened. There was a stabbing, but guess what the establishment media starts saying? They start covering the jihadist attack with this angle. Muslims are afraid there will be a backlash. Muslims are afraid there's going to be stereotyping now. So when jihadists attack, the media's angle is that Muslims are victims. See, that Muslims are afraid of a backlash. Muslims are afraid of stereotyping, etc., etc., etc. But the coverage is never about the attack itself and what motivated it in a truthful way. We don't have the establishment media saying the truth about that. And the victims are very quickly forgotten, and the members of the ideology that perpetrated the attack are painted as the victims. So it's very interesting that when jihadists attack non-Muslims, Muslims are somehow the victims. In my book, Jihadist Psychopath, I explain how all of this works. Because in that book, I explain step by step, and my book offers a very original and groundbreaking perspective on the terror war in this way. Because Jihadist Psychopath shows that what Islamic supremacism is doing to us is exactly how psychopaths romance, seduce, and then devour their victims. There's a game being played here. But part of that game, part of the way that the psychopath captures his victim and continues to enslave his victim is throughout that process, and you know a lot of these people in your personal life, trust me, we've all run into them. The psychopath punches you in the face, but then you somehow start apologizing because he's sulking and becomes the victim. So in my book, I show that the way that psychopaths wage war and imprison their victims is exactly what Islamic supremacism is doing to us today. Therefore, Jihadist Psychopath. And I show all of that step by step. I'm not going to give any spoilers here today, but one of the spoilers is that there's a plantation. And in the same way, for instance, Candace Owens, what a hero, what just a marvelous Wonder Woman. Candace Owens, that's on the front lines of our culture war today and opening the eyes of so many black Americans and leading them off of the Democratic Party's plantation. And she's opening up the eyes of not only black Americans, but of Americans and people throughout the world as to the danger of the left, period. But one of the significant things that she's doing is she's unveiling the Democratic Party's plantation that's been set up for black Americans. And she's unveiled this plantation and showing black Americans how they can escape this plantation and not to be afraid to escape the plantation. Because when you escape that plantation, right away the name calling starts and the abuse starts, etc., etc. And so why I'm mentioning this is the same way that a hero like Candace Owens has done such an important thing in unveiling the Democratic Party's plantation. My book, on many levels, on another realm, in a different theater, shows the same thing, but in the terror war. Because I show the Jihadist Psychopath's plantation, and I'm showing how many of us who are stuck on it can escape it. And it's very scary to escape it for many people, because just as in the Democratic Party's plantation, any black American, for instance, that starts saying that he's for Trump or is going to vote Republican, right away starts being called all of these names, gets excommunicated from a large part of his community, is slandered, libeled on many levels. We know all of this, and it's a horrifying thing. And there's a lot of brave people that are leaving that plantation. And the same way in my book on the Jihadist Psychopath, I show how today that plantation that he has set up, people are afraid to criticize Islam. People are afraid to say anything about jihad because they're going to be called a racist and an Islamophobe and a bigot and so many other things. But I show that we can get past that. And believe me, the left and Islamic supremacists are terrified. The Jihadist Psychopath is terrified if you acquire the knowledge and learn about that plantation and develop the courage to get off of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud and honored that my book has also received glowing praise, including, for instance, from Trump's National Security Advisor, John Bolton, who has praised my book. And I'm so grateful and excited about that. I just want to share with you that John Bolton, part of what he said in his advanced praise about the Jihadist Psychopath is that, quote, this century's counterpart to Burnham's classic work. And as you saw from that graphic, there's a lot of other praise, but we're going to have to leave it at that for now. But this book was written by me to unveil and to expose the tremendous threat that we're facing, but also to explain its dynamics, to show really how it's happening and what our enemy is doing. And so it's crucial for you today to get off the Jihadist Psychopath's plantation if you're on it. And you can do that by ordering Jihadist Psychopath today at Amazon.com. Because once you do and once you read it, if you're one of the brave counter-jihadists today that's on the front lines fighting, that's fantastic. You're not on that plantation. But it's good for you to learn about exactly how that plantation works. And for those of you who coincidentally are watching this today and are bullied and are afraid to some extent of what the Jihadist Psychopath is doing to you, of what the left and Islamic supremacists are doing to you, this book will give you the knowledge of how that whole totalitarian paradigm works. And once you read the book and learn about the plantation, you can get off of it and begin to defend and protect our precious civilization. We'll see you on the next Jamie Glazov moment. Good night.